You're hot finally too, buddy. Woo! Welcome back to the Convo Couch, everyone. Pasta Jardula here.
I can't deal with him today. I cannot deal with him today, guys. I am Fiorella, and I'm thousands of miles away, thousands, and I still can't deal with it. It's unbelievable, really, what he does.
Oz is on the ones and twos with the overall spinning. And by the way, fam just got a little bit touchy because I paid a little Barry White before the video started. And she was just like, would you stop? Would you stop? Would you stop? We also have a new soundboard in here. So we have like little clips of things playing from like Rick and Morty and everything. So I'm driving fam crazy, even though she is in Moscow, ladies and gentlemen. I am in Vegas and Oz is somewhere off on the prairie, fam. Who knows where he is? I just want to send a quick shout out to a lot of people on the YouTube who've been holding it down despite the oppression or suppression, or whatever you want to call it, the demonetization, the shadow banning, the shutting down. I made a tweet today. It's been 19 months still demonetized on YouTube and haven't been told why. And maybe it was because information that was once considered disinformation, but is now actually true. I don't know, fam, but it still exists. And the people who have been hanging out on YouTube, everybody from Steve Cutler Live, Friendly Brilliant, we love you. Tara Reid is hanging out. Dana Fairbanks. Guys, thank you so much for really doing what you do. Do us another favor. Hit the like button, hit the thumbs up, hit the share, get it out there. And if you get a chance, go on over to the Rokfin. That's our free speech platform. Tara's even got a channel over there and a lot of other friends of ours from the MCSC network. Including everybody from the whole crews and groups out there. That's why we matriculate over there, because they allow us to say the things we want to say and speak the truth, despite whether we're in Moscow, Vegas, or in Washington. Fam, a loaded show today. Great stuff.
Did you send the link to our friend?
Yeah, but I thought maybe you can send the link. I sent it on Twitter DM.
You froze.
I didn't freeze. You froze. You're freezing. You're the freezer over here.
Oh, okay.
Everybody knows that you're cold as ice.
Am I freezing?
Yeah, you're freezing. Is your phone back on Wi-Fi? Or?
Anyway, all right. Well, no, it shouldn't be. Is it freezing a lot?
Yeah, you're like in the Matrix.
I'm okay. Okay.
Well, let her double check to make sure that her phone's back.
Okay, yeah. Okay.
Check real quick, and I'll riff a little bit because Trey Wright was the first to walk in the door.
Oh, yes.
Jolly P and the Russian agent. Love you guys so much. Could you throw in and the man with the overalls? Because you guys can't see it. I get to see it. And it's a sight for sore eyes. It's beautiful. He's telling me I'm number one. Oz is a beautiful man. We love him. I'm getting under everybody's skin. Fam, somebody who likes to get under people's skin, your boy, Joey B.
Yes, Joe Biden. So we're going to start this off. Joe Biden's most honest moment about the state of the United States. I mean, this is the most honest Joe Biden has been. So he attempts to describe the United States of America in one word. And this is how he describes the United States. I can't.
America.
What is that?
I don't know. Whoa.
Oz,
am I tripping?
That? Dude, either the shrooms kicked in or that's so echoey. Holy cow.
Hold on. Is that you?
It should not be doing that.
Hold. All right, what if it's me? Is it me?
All right, here we go.
Okay.
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to put him.
Play again. Play it again. One more time. Play it again. Play it again.
Yeah. Play it again.
I can't get enough of this one. Play it again.
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to put him.
One more time. One more
America is a
again.
nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to put him.
It's he's that's 81 million votes, ladies and gentlemen. That's the president of the United States. I've heard it like 7 times.
Oh my God.
Every time. Who's doing?
I'm literally crying right now.
Fam, there's a lot of reports
Oh my God.
that Vladimir Putin
Oh my God, guys. I
is
can't.
demented and he's losing all his mental faculties. But our president,
Really?
sharp as a spoon. Sharp
Doesn't
as a
that
spoon.
doesn't that aptly describe the state of the United States right now, though?
Oz, one more time. We got to. We have to. I mean,
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to put him. America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to put him.
Oh my God, I can't. Wow, I don't think I've laughed that hard.
Almost, fam. We're gonna get accused of ageism. We're gonna get accused of bullying. This is just awful how they played that 6 times on the CONVO couch. These right wingers repeating Joe Biden saying, America can be described in one word. That's our show for today, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for watching the CONVO couch.
It's, okay. I'm gonna start sounding like Joe Biden. How do you? Okay. Woo, okay.
All right.
Think of like, I don't know, dead kittens or something.
With the fingers like this.
So one of the things that we're reminded of all the time, especially when we go down to the global south, and our friend Terry reminds us of this all the time. She says, when you talk about America, America's a continent. It includes Canada, it includes Mexico, actually. I mean, technically that's Central America now, but originally it was always North America. So that this map just basically shows like America can mean the North and the South of America. When you say America, it's like, you got North America, you got South America, you got Central America. So I just wanted to point that out too, because it's good to kind of look at things that way. Back in the days of Simon Bolivar, they considered them Americans. The South Americans were the Americans at that point. So it's
Don't
just
you
good
think it would be
to
okay
know that.
if they just took the A off of America when they're describing the actual proper United States?
That's what I do.
Yeah,
say
just
America. And I say America. Make it a U instead of an E. So it's like America.
America.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. So
sorry,
when I was going
in America.
When I was going to view houses today, they were like, "Oh, where is she from?" And they're like, "American." And they're like, "Oh, American." Like,
American.
But anyway, so that's that. There's a couple of more videos though of Joe Biden, fam. We couldn't resist.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, on to the next video.
Yeah, the next one, the Rumble one. The map that we just talked about. Yeah.
We just talked about it. Did you?
I'll give you 26 seconds.
Okay, yes.
America.
So there's a map.
With the United States of America on it, fam.
Canada, nobody thinks about Canada. Poor Canada. Then the United States, Mexico, Central America,
Joe.
And South America. You can see the big Brazilian flag. We will take Brazil next. And there we go. And that's
Central
all
America, fam, is the smallest bit of it right there. It's everything south of Mexico and everything north of Colombia and Venezuela. So it's that little spot right in the middle, that little chunk of land that a lot of globalists and American governmental entities are fighting to make sure they have control of. you know, they do talk about what's going on if they possibly did build a canal that went straight through Nicaragua, what that would mean for global hegemony. Can you help say that word for me, fam?
You sound like Joe Biden.
Yeah.
Hegemony.
Hegemony. There's one thing that's can be described with America. That is one area. Can you imagine what would happen to maritime laws and whatnot and shipping lanes and how it would change so many things? America pretty much controls Panama. That's their piece of property. That's, you know, they have the say who goes through and who doesn't go through. You bring in Nicaragua and letting them go straight through from one ocean to the next. There's no way they're going to let that happen. You know, sitting still. They're going to come back. A lot of the empire, the people in the empire, once they're done focusing a lot of attention over there in Ukraine and whatnot, they're going to move their attention back to Central America. And they're going to want to, you know, somebody said the other day on a show on Union of the Wanted, like the Russians are now in Nicaragua, and me, Niko, and like, I believe it was Steve, we all said together, like almost like stereo, the Russians have been in Nicaragua for quite some time. So yeah, there's going to be attention diverted back here. And with DeSantis, you know, fam, these words that he's propping up, this is an issue. He goes, it's very disturbing that the people chose, like you just said, the people who chose the democracy that they have. That's what's bad. So what you're saying is what the people, you want to go against what the people chose? Yeah.
DeSantis is, as you guys know, he's really not my favorite, right? But it's not because he's just a Republican. It's because he's an imperialist and because he's a hypocrite. He only supports speech he agrees with. He only supports, you know, he supports American imperialism. And yeah. So this video is the Rumble video. I guess we're showing it here.
Well, it's
yes.
It's before we get to the Maduro part, I guess. But it's when you said the title, Biden's most honest moment about the U.S. and this is something we have to consider here. What he says, listen up, because he's telling you what's to come.
Mr. President, are you confident you have, I know you're looking for more money from Congress for this vaccine campaign and for COVID funding going into the fall. How much of the supply of vaccines for these small children is there, and how many of the nation's kids will you be able to get vaccinated before you need more money from Congress?
Well, we'll get through at least this year. We do need more money, but we don't just need more money for vaccines for children eventually. We need more money to plan for the second pandemic. There's going to be another pandemic. We have to think ahead. That's not something the last outfit did very well. That's something we've been doing fairly well. That's why we need the money.
So, fam, not only are they trying to create this instant, nonstop, continuous gravy train of finances, whatnot, they're pretty much saying it out loud. Joe Biden, we're going to have a second pandemic. Newspaper guy over here talking about what's going on in the mainstream media over here. Of course, this one was by the Las Vegas Review-Journal. So the locals here are getting involved. It says an audit of COVID spending is requested. And this is what has to go on right now. We need local and state legislators to demand to see all the money trails and how everything is spent so they can bring it to the eye of the American people. Not that anything will freaking change, fam. Newspaper guy over here. But, I mean, I hope it will.
You know, I have a hat.
Of people.
I have a hat. I should bring my hat. It's not a newspaper hat. It's a real hat.
Fam, I know what hat you're talking about. I got it for you.
No, it's not that hat. It's
you got a more authentic one? Well, anyways, just like Castro, newspaper guy out over here. Read it. It's right there, fam.
You are not like Castro, please.
Fam, okay. They tell you what they're going to do right here. They let you know every single step of the way. The freaking mainstream paper.
You and Joe Biden could have a competition as to who.
I know. We were talking and people would be like, are they speaking to each other? Or is that Charlie Brown's parents speaking?
It's tongue. Yeah. You guys speak to each other in your own tongue. So I have one more Joe Biden video that I added. So this is a Joe Biden video where we'll just watch it.
We'll just watch.
So for all those Republicans in Congress criticizing me today for high gas prices in America,
This is it.
are you now saying we were wrong to support Ukraine? Are you saying we were wrong to stand up to Putin? Are you saying that we would rather have lower gas prices in America and Putin's iron fist in Europe? I don't believe that. So for all those Republicans in Congress criticizing me
another
today
one out there floating
for high
like
gas
floods
prices
it,
in
man.
America,
In this
are you now
speech.
saying we were wrong to support Ukraine? Are you saying we were wrong to stand up to Putin? Are you saying that we would rather have lower gas prices in America and Putin?
All right.
Fam.
Once again,
Fam, are you
It's
saying
Vladdy
that you
Daddy's
didn't want to
fault.
fight for freedom, fam? That's the price of freedom.
it's Vladdy Daddy's fault that gas prices in the United States are extremely high, right? Like it's his fault. He's and they're not doing anything to Putin, and we're going to talk exactly about why this whole thing that they're trying to do is really not working. I mean, I'm telling you, I'm in Russia right now. The people are fine. The people are good. The ruble is going up, and we're going to talk about that. And things are getting more expensive here, but like in terms of for Americans, they're getting more expensive. So Nicolas Maduro, and the reason I put Nicolas Maduro here is because I want to shame U.S. Americans as to what they're never going to have as long as we don't have fair elections. Because today I made a Twitter post talking about how we don't have fair elections, and people were like, "Oh, you're pushing right-wing talking points about the election."
Are they really still saying that?
They're still saying that, but they don't know. They don't go to these countries in Latin America. They don't know that these countries in Latin America all have voter ID. They don't have vote by mail. They don't have ballot harvesting. They definitely don't have drop boxes. They don't have any of that stuff. They have one day of
public
voting,
counting,
etc. Public counting, paper trails, more
accessibility, transparency.
And so Nicolas Maduro is somebody that, of course, the Venezuelan people who have stayed in Venezuela in spite of sanctions support. There are a lot of Venezuelans here in Russia that work in the petrol industry that work with Russia. I've met one of them. They're really nice people. They're really great. And they understand sanctions. They understand how that works. Here, I had to deal with not being able to use my bank cards, my credit cards when I got here at all. If I didn't have cash, I would have been SOL. But also, it's difficult to even get an exchange right now because sometimes they're not open, and it's that whole thing where you need like a bank card and you need rubles, and they do not take any American dollars. They can't essentially take American dollars. It's like the Russian law. So I got to experience a fraction of what it's like to not be able to access your money, to have money, but you can't access it. And that is just but a tiny microscopic fraction of what people who have endured sanctions experience. And it was not fun. And I had to actually have somebody give me rubles to help me out first because I couldn't get an exchange and I couldn't access my cards. These are very real things that people are dealing with at a scale that is extremely massive. And so Nicolas Maduro talked about the axis of resistance. And what that is this resistance that's built all over the world. Particularly, he mentions the continent of Africa, Latin America, the Caribbean, Asia, and the Middle East. And he talks about how this resistance is pushing against the Western hegemony, is pushing against the attempt to impose digital and mental slavery on people. So let's hear what he says, because what he says is really based. It's really good.
El eje de la resistencia está en todo el mundo. Está en África, está en el Asia, en el Medio Oriente, está en América Latina, el Caribe. Y a ellos se suman los pueblos que luchan contra el neoliberalismo, contra el racismo, que luchan contra las distintas formas de colonialismo, colonialismo político, el colonialismo económico, el colonialismo cultural o el colonialismo digital, que es el que está en desarrollo ahora a través de las redes sociales. Colonialismo digital, cultural, todos los que luchamos contra el colonialismo, todos los que luchamos por la descolonización de la mente y de nuestro pueblo, formamos parte del eje de la resistencia frente a las maneras imperiales de tratar de imponer la hegemonía en el mundo. El siglo XXI es nuestro siglo, es el siglo de la unión de los pueblos, de la liberación de los pueblos, es el siglo de la justicia, de la verdad. Los imperios están en fase de decadencia y los proyectos de los pueblos por la felicidad, el desarrollo y la grandeza apenas están empezando. Este es nuestro siglo.
Gracias.
Gracias.
Señor.
Muchas gracias. Salam aleikum.
Alaikum salam.
So he did this interview, I believe, when he was in Tehran.
Yeah,
And that's why he's saying salam alaikum, alaikum salam. So he says specifically, he talks about all the forms of colonialism, right?
Mhm.
Specifically, he says colonialism, and he talks about the digital colonialism, like how they're
Cyber
the
colonialism.
censorship and all of that. So, yes.
Yeah.
And then he talks about the mental aspect of that, right? How they're trying to control people's thoughts and you know what people think and stuff. And he says, you know, empires are in decline. This is our century. This is our time. And I firmly believe that. With what's happening in Latin America right now, I see that. With what's happening with Russia, China, I see that. Africa as well, I see that. The Pan-Africanism that's occurring. And so I think it's important that a leader says that. And this is what our government, our State Department calls a brutal dictator.
Yeah.
I don't know. Doesn't really sound like a brutal dictator to me, but that's just,
No.
you know,
Yeah.
that's just my own personal opinion, fam.
Fam, I'm not that when I do that. Okay, we can dial the a little bit, but yes, I think a lot of people too. You know, we have yet to get a chance to go to Venezuela. It's obviously on the dock for us to go there and speak to the people and understand what's going on. But you know, people have to understand what's going on in Latin America and south of the border right now. There's a change, there's a shift, and it's being done very tactically, very smart. Meticulously, yeah, meticulously would be a good word there because there are specifics.
Tactfully too, it's a good word. Tactfully. I mean, not everybody, and
but
not everybody's doing this the same way. We can talk more about that in the next section because that's kind of more along the lines of what we're going to talk about. But you're right, absolutely agree.
The people want Maduro. You know what I'm saying? The majority of they want this guy to lead there. So for us to go in there and say anything, to say boo about anything about removing these people, that this is not good, that the Marxists and all this shit is just, it's all guff. It's all guff. We need to stay the fuck out and let these people determine their own future.
100%. Whether they're Marxists or not, we need to let them determine their own future. Because for the longest time, we've been having this Monroe Doctrine mentality, but I see some of that mentality seeping in on the left as well, not just on the right.
Yeah,
it's just in a different way. It's done like, well, these people need to be, you know, more feminist, or these people need to be this way or that way, or they're too woke, or it's on either end of the spectrum. Just shut the hell up. You have no say in how these people run their country. Let them run their own country. End of story.
And it's false to say that they're ushering in woke ideology. They're not fucking woke. They're socially conservative.
Yeah, there's always going to be those attempts to mimic the United States and the West. Of course, that exists. But the vast majority of these governments are focused on literally providing water, stopping death squads, providing electricity, things that we take for granted in the United States. And, you know, you just being in Russia just a few days, there are a lot of things that in America we take for granted, like space, having all this space, having the latest cars. The cars here are not, most of them are mechanical cars. They're not automatic. I mean, it's just things like that, you know, we don't really understand. And people who have never traveled, this is why I advocate travel outside the United States if you can, because it really, really, really changes your perspective on things. Like I 100%, I would make that a requirement if I were president, is travel to different countries so you can really understand what goes on.
I'd like to live in your
Speaking-
theocracy.
Theocracy, exactly. Steve would have his own autonomous zone where he could do whatever he wanted. I already
guns
said
and
that.
bullets.
You can have your guns and bullets, Steve. I swear. You can have Gomez roam free. Anyway,
I don't know if we can let Gomez roam free. He's not the type that you let roam free. He's so goofy. He'll get into some trouble.
Listen, we'll say Steve, whatever the place for him. Okay, so real quick before our guest comes up, the ruble is the world's best performing currency. This was admitted by none other than the New York Times. Okay, the New York Times. So we're just going to go over, fans, what this is. As we know, of course, this is happening because of gas, the gas sales that Russia has done with India. They have sold in the East. And so that's what's been happening. And this is what it says: a combination of capital controls, rising exports, and falling imports have strengthened the ruble currency since it's plunged in the weeks after Russia's invasion of Ukraine. For example, I was with a wonderful, nice lady, Russian realtor today, and she took me to see some apartments. She's like, if you came 2 months ago, things would have been an entirely different story. Things were a lot cheaper. The ruble was down, the dollar was up, this whole thing. Fast forward to just 2 months, she's like, I can't believe what's going on. Like, I mean, now the ruble's up. It's getting more expensive to have an apartment, etc. So this is what's been happening. This is real, and they continue talking about how the ruble cemented its unlikely status as the world's best performing currency, rising to new multi-layer highs this week since collapsing the weeks after Russia's invasion of Ukraine, which triggered the sweeping international sanctions aimed at crippling Russia's economy. The ruble has come roaring back. The Russia's economy was not crippled. Russia's economy is doing better, as you can see. And on Tuesday, the ruble traded at its strongest level again against the U.S. dollar since June of 2015. It has gained about 35% so far this year, beating every major currency, and has more than doubled from its post-invasion low. So there you go. Most improved player of the year, the ruble. I mean, guys, we know that we believe, well, we don't know. We believe that this is a controlled sort of demolition in the United States. They don't care that the dollar's sinking, same in the EU. But I don't think they wanted the ruble to rise like this. I don't think they expected it. Here's the chart, and you can see how much is a ruble worth. You can see in the past how it was, and then the dip right after the strategic military intervention, and then up again. And you can see how it's gone up to basically almost what it was before. And that's that. And that's the ruble doing that. That's Russia. That's, in spite of the sanctions, in spite of everything that's happening, they're coming out on top. The United States' plan to sink Russia is not working. Their plan to sink their own economies totally works.
Europe.
I mean, that's great. Europe.
Europe working very nicely right now.
Yeah, and there's actually, I didn't even get a chance to put it in. There's protests coming in certain parts of Europe already, starting against these, the economy and the gas prices and everything. So in the United States, we don't see protests yet, but people are feeling it in the grocery store, at the stores. Inflation, etc. People are scrambling. It's getting hard to buy or even rent anything right now. So the interest rates are also up. They keep going up extremely quickly, and so that is something that everyday Americans are facing. Sam,
I just want to add on a little caveat to this whole situation. There's two reasons why you can't exchange your U.S. dollars over there. It can't And why? Number one, they can't take it because of the banking system. Obviously, we've talked about this, the hard cutoff of allowing, the banking systems to intertwine with each other. The United States attempt to punish Russia and hit them and, hit them where it hurts. But the other reason is they don't want to take them. I believe that Matt Ehret said on our show that it was Lavrov, where some Russian official says, we don't want your bullshit paper money anyways, because it's not backed by anything, right? The Russian economy, the ruble is not backed by commodities, gold, wheat, whatnot, and everything. So it's actually worth something. Whereas if we've had this crazy fiat system that's backed by nothing, and over the last 2-3 years, I think they've printed about 80% of the dollar of all existence in just a short amount of time. So they can keep printing it up as much as they want, but eventually it's going to get caught up. Inflation's going to get caught up. The fact that your money's not backed by anything. We always say that our dollar is backed by a missile, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, we force people to use our monetary system. We go in there, we rape their resources, we take over their country, we force austerity measures on their people with our currency. And that's what's really going on. And it's just the chickens has come home to roost. It's not that they can't even take it. They don't want to take it anymore. They have the best currency right now because what they've done with the ruble. And bottom line,
Ruble,
not ruble, right? Ruble. Sorry. The ruble is in
rupee. You're confusing rupees.
Yeah, in Pakistan. We were talking about it yesterday. The ruble is worth a lot more from every single move they've played. And that's why that currency is worth money. It's actually backed by something with commodities as opposed to the latter, which is backed by a missile.
And I should have brought it. I have it right here, but I should have brought it so I could show the fans what they look like. Kind of.
Oh, you have one? Go get one.
I have a lot of rubles. That's all I have now. I have $20.
Can you send me some rubles?
No, because you don't say it right. Number
rubles.
one.
Rubles. Go to Pakistan. No. Give me some rupees.
Is it Pakistan or is that? I thought rupees was India.
I think it's. Anyway, I think they each have their own
rupees. Okay. Well, okay.
I could be wrong. I don't know.
I know India has rupees.
I don't have any problems.
Anyway, so fam.
I don't have any problems.
Anyway, so I just had one last bit from this article. We pretty much talked about it all. Just basically that, let's see, what does it say? We basically talked about it, that they talk about how everything went down and then it went back up. So we're good on that note. But yeah, guys, rubles. Trust me, you're going to want rubles soon. And it's kind of crazy because I moved here and I didn't think it was going to go up that high, and it really did. So yeah.
Rupee is India, somebody says.
Yeah.
What do they have in Pakistan? I'm going to pull up Pakistan's dollar right now. Let me see. We got to figure this out.
You have to figure this out. I am not 100% certain, but
right. Pakistan money is rupee. Pakistan rupee. So they have a rupee too. So see, Pasta knows things.
But you were like mixing the rupees with the rubles, so you're calling them rubles.
I stand corrected there. Right. And there's a movie called it was an old Gregory Hines movie about, I think it was called White Knights, about a old school
progressives.
No, it's about a Russian defective who left, and then he gets caught and captured by Russia again. And he's a dancer, and it's kind of like one of the old school movies fan about saying that like Russia was like this evil empire of sorts, whatnot. And there's this old like American jazz artist or dancer or ballet dancer that's also trapped. And Gregory Hines plays one of the parts, and this old school Russian actor plays the parts. But there's a scene where he goes, "Oh, rubles! I want rubles, nice rubles," and I should know better. That's rubles. Fam, can I read some Super Rays?
Yeah.
Okay, so I believe I already read Trey, right?
Yes.
We love you, Trey. He said
we love you, Trey.
He has another one. He's Jolly P in the Russian agent, what they called you. Love you guys very much. The second one he left says, look up Rhapsody Street Kid's grandma. He sounds just like a cartoon character. Cartoon world live in is proven. Rap City Street Kids grandma. Was he saying, look up Rap City Street Kids and calling me grandma? Maybe he's saying that.
No, no.
Is there?
He's saying look up Rap City Street Kids grandma. It's like this video clip he posted. It's that it sounds like Joe Biden.
Okay. I'm gonna look that up after. Everybody go look up Rap City Street Kids grandma. Check it out. Chris Leone, where the hell you been, brother? We love you. Thank you for coming back and hanging out on the Rokfins. We got 66 peeps in there. We got about 240 on the YouTubes. Unlike yesterday, we had like 80. Nobody got alerted. So thank you so much for sharing and getting out there. Chris Leone says, hey, hi, guys. So what's this nonsense I'm hearing from a certain region for Ryan Seacrest wannabe that Gustavo Pedro is the George Soros back candidate and that the guy who lost in Colombia was the real lefty? Am I on drugs? Is that really circling around? I know Jimmy feels betrayed by his former friends, but he needs to distance himself from these Pat Soch grifters. What's a Pat Soch grifter?
Okay, hold on.
Who are in it for the money and clout.
There's a lot to unpack there, okay? Not everybody that says they're a Pat Soch is bad. But here's the thing. If you're going to talk about a country, if you're going to give your opinion and analysis on something, you have to know what you're talking about, or you come out looking really bad and then you make your host look even worse. So Jackson said something about Francia Marquez being funded by the USAID and Soros money, the Petro campaign. I haven't seen any evidence of that. I have watched YouTube videos in Spanish because I speak the language in Spanish of somebody saying, hey, that she took some money and they have the evidence, but they didn't show any of it. So I don't know where it is. And that alone isn't enough to say that you're taking George Soros money. And also just to say that Rodolfo Hernandez is the real lefty populist. The guy's not a lefty at all. The guy's like on the far right. And that's fine. I mean, in terms of Latin America, the far right though has a completely different significance than what it does in the United States. The left, the right, the center left, all of that has a completely different significance. Why? Because these people, as Pasta said earlier on the show, are fighting for economic change. They're fighting for things that are tangibles. They're not fighting for, I get to be the most woke person in the room. It's actually not that. Some people might be more progressive in their social stances than others, but the vast majority of the countries that are the most left, radical, whatever, are actually conservative in a lot of ways socially. We've talked about this before with Nicaragua and their stance on abortion and marijuana. We've talked about it, and even in Cuba, Venezuela, you can say that the religion plays a bigger role in these countries. So just saying that they're woke, it really doesn't make sense. Yes, there are elements of the liberals, the neoliberal governments that are woke, but those are the governments that they've been trying to get rid of, essentially. They're not the ones that are there. And Rodolfo Hernandez is an admirer of Adolf Hitler. He has said it on more than one occasion. He's not a populist. He used the populist term to try to get in there. And he was backed and supported by the Uribista candidate, who was the establishment status quo neoliberal candidate.
Ivan Duque's party.
Yeah, the same party that was U.S. backed and led that whole oppression to the people that really ended up in the deaths of so many young people, the maiming of so many protesters and students, some of whom we met. And so it really was disrespectful to hear that this stuff coming out without any sort of context, without any sort of understanding. And, I just, it's just like if you're going to have somebody on that even mentions Colombia like that and gives an analysis, you have to know what they're talking about, because otherwise it just makes you look bad. And, even if they look bad, and it's just like, guys, like, got to do better, especially in Latin America. It just comes off really just like,
Yeah.
you come off like as an American that doesn't know what you're talking about.
You know, and just I just want to kind of say that they're not fighting for woke ideology. There's no woke ideology, you know, set in there. We've met protesters, people who are standing up, fighting back for the government, trying to take their country back for the first time ever, actually trying to give themselves some power. You know, dude was shot, his eyes were shot out. Like he had no eye. I mean, this is what they're fighting for over there. All this narco, you know, kind of military government that's all around. And when it comes to trying to deal with a country that has special NATO status, it's really hard to kind of avoid certain entities and NGOs that are just intertwined in the country. Francia Marquez, she was the real one that they really wanted, a lot of the radicals, whatnot, the leftists and whatnot. And, you know, when you're talking about dealing with these peace accords and these peace deals and stuff like that, there's all these entities there that there are at the table that you have to deal and talk with. You know what I'm saying? So it was like when we went to Honduras, we're like, well, what are you going to nationalize? And to think for a second that Hernandez was going to nationalize the oil in his country, that's just beyond. It was not going to happen. That's not going to happen. You know what I'm saying? When we went to Honduras, we all have to walk lightly. They have military bases with American troops in their country, a lot of them, Colombia and Honduras. So we have to kind of step back. We have to understand that this might not be the president that a lot of them wanted, but this was the necessary president right now. There's a historical picture of Petro with Hugo Chavez. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, even though, and there's a picture of Petro with Bill Clinton when he went to the country and stuff, but this is the president they needed right now. This was the stepping stone to start the process of getting rid of a lot of the empire's clause, especially when it comes to NATO's and bases and buying arms, whatnot. This was the step. We were there. We talked to the people. We know what they like. We know what they wanted. So for anybody to kind of make these kind of comments of not going what's going on, to say that this is like some Soros-funded kind of entity. I mean, this isn't Ukraine, man. This isn't Ukraine. It's the global South. And when you go down there and you speak to people, you'll get a lot more understanding of what's going on. It's very nuanced. You know what I'm saying? So, and this is a NATO country next to a country in Venezuela that has close ties to Russia. And this is talking about their grip and the empire, what they're going to do and what they're going to continue to try to do. Chris Leone's last statement before we get to our guest, by the way, says the reason people in Latin America are patriotic is because they are standing up to an empire who exploits and crush those poor people. And this is so true. But when a white guy streams in his trust fund paid apartment with an American flag behind him and calls himself a patriot, it sends all the wrong messages, and it's schizophrenic at best. The U.S. is not in the same situation. We are the empire. We oppress. And when you go down there, you see that and you understand that and you speak to the people, you'll have a completely different understanding of what's going on. We have our guest with us right now, fam. A man who likes to smoke beautiful cigars. We get a lot of good flavor. We got pictures, baby. I'm going to put the pictures up. He's one of our comrades. We met this man in Nicaragua when he was out there covering the elections. We just recently were down at the border with him, standing in solidarity, covering the border situation and the crisis, people who want to end the blockade in Cuba and Venezuela, whatnot. Our good friend, Dennis, how do you say your last name? Because I want to say it wrong. Because I've been saying Rotusiak, and I know it's wrong.
Hello, Pastor. Hello, Fiorella. Great to be back. It's pronounced Rogatuk.
Rogatuk.
Yes.
Completely off, dude.
Oh, your comrade.
That's probably the best. That'll be the best,
I love you, brother.
Say.
Okay, so Dennis, thank you for coming on. We've been following. Well, I've been following what's going on in Ecuador and all of the videos that people have been sharing from on the ground. We were just talking about Colombia and a little bit of just misinformation that's been put out there. We're going to talk a little bit about Latin America. So in Ecuador, we've been seeing this national strike that has been ongoing, led by indigenous groups, social movements, et cetera, that are fed up with the Lasso government. Now, Guillermo Lasso was U.S.-backed candidate for president, and then he became the president. and he has strongly just been unsuccessful. The economy is in disarray. People are suffering. And then on top of that, of course, there's been this pushback, this violent pushback against these protesters where they have been maimed or now killed. There's at least, I think, 2 people dead from this violence that's been going on. So if you just give us a little bit of a synopsis as to what's going on and how this started.
Certainly. Well, I think that, to put the current developments in perspective, it's important to go back a few years and try to understand that the current government, the current right-wing government of Guillermo Lasso is in many ways basically like a Xerox copy of the previous government that was led by Lenin Moreno, a turncoat and a former vice president of Korea who, although he was elected on the platform of Citizens' Revolution, ended up betraying not just Korea but also the entire platform that he stood for. And it was I would say it was even back then that the real problems of Ecuador started. The rolling back of many of the social programs implemented by Korea, the rolling back of the investment projects, allowing the U.S. government to host a military base on the Galapagos Islands of all places. Of course, the persecution of their opponents, which in the end culminated in the mass protests of October 2019, which were also led and organized by the Confederation of the Indigenous Nations of Ecuador, or CONAI, and were led by Leonidas Issa, who is now the president of CONAI, and other indigenous leaders. The protests, even back in October 2019, were along the same kind of lines as the ones that we're seeing today. In fact, I would say that the key social demands are almost identical. That is, an end to the price hikes of petroleum. So there's the return of the subsidies for petroleum, an end to the program of privatization, end to the cutting of social spending, and of course an end to state repression. Effectively, this is also the kind of demands we are seeing today. In fact, in many ways, the protests happening right now are the reflection of this, not just of the protests of October 2019, but also of this kind of the accumulation of popular resistance, accumulation of popular dissent that has been building up in Ecuador in the last several years. The country's return to neoliberalism, first under Moreno and now under Lasso. It's basically as if it's kind of bringing it back into the age of these kind of indigenous-led popular revolts, which we saw in Ecuador in the late 1990s and the early 2000s. And once again, as you just mentioned, the state repression and police repression is playing a key part in actually fueling a lot of the actions and a lot of the popular mobilizations. Now, as indeed we've had 2 assassinations of indigenous activists, and in response to one of them, the police station was burned down tonight. I was just searching the exact name of this.
Yeah, I think Camilla posted something about that actually.
In Puyo. In Puyo.
Yeah, Puyo.
In Pastaza, that's the one. So the protesters actually burned down the police station in response to the killing of one of the indigenous protesters. Now, how is this going to develop? This is it's a great question. Because even though Lasso did manage to beat the left-wing candidate Andrés Arauz in last year's presidential elections, we have to remember that Lasso, for the most part of the last 12 months, has been governing has basically been governing with an extremely shaky coalition. because his own party only has about 10% of the seats in the National Assembly. He's actually had to, scrap together kind of a coalition of different independent groups and make agreements with some of the other liberal parties like Izquierda Democrática, or a party that's called Democratic Left, although there isn't much left of that party at all, and also with with what is considered to be the main indigenous political organization, which is Pachakutik, which is the de facto political arm of the CONAIE. An agreement was made between Lasso and Pachakutik with the condition that Lasso would find solutions to the economic crisis in Ecuador, that he would, that the Ecuadorian military and police would not engage in persecution or repression of activists, that Lasso would not, that Lasso would ensure that that fuel hikes or any external crises did not affect Ecuador's fuel prices, and effectively which effectively this kind of agreement seems to have only held on for the last 9 months until finally the indigenous leaders, particularly Leonidas Iza, decided this is the time, this guy is not serious about dialogue. He's the exact continuation of Lenin Moreno, and they were effectively left with no choice but to begin a national strike across Ecuador.
Pasta, did you have a question?
Well, I just was going to say I wanted to play some of the videos he got, but if you have some more questions before we play some of the videos, because there's some just very intriguing, interesting videos that are out there right now. And I'm still trying to grasp exactly, what the main, I mean, is this about economics right here and him being held responsible for the country just kind of falling in so hard economically? Is that the main purpose behind this whole break? Because I did see like workers in certain areas too as well taking to the streets.
This is evolving into a I would say it's into a what I would say a much bigger struggle as it goes on. It initially started as simply a national strike organized by indigenous groups who blockaded major roads around the cities. But in the last few years we've seen this develop further, because we've also seen students starting to organize protests in the Central University of Ecuador, which is located in Quito. We've had there are several other workers groups which have supported the strike. From my memory of the October 2019 revolt, I remember very distinctly that there were transportation unions and also taxi drivers unions who also supported the strikes because of the rising fuel costs. So the elimination of subsidies for gas and for fuel was kind of what really sparked this mass popular uprising. So at the moment from what I've seen, the protests are involving sort of a whole sort of multitude of organizations. It's curious, however, to see the way the protests have been portrayed in the Ecuadorian media, because they're basically saying, they're basically holding the same line as they did in 2019, so saying that the indigenous groups led by Leonidas Iza are terrorists, and that they're actually being financed by Rafael Correa and by the Citizens' Revolution movement, which is very curious as well, because Leonidas Iza has often been at odds with Correa and have actually refused to support the candidacy of their chosen leader in the 2021 election. And sort of Iza and Correa have had conflicts in the past. So at the moment, even though Correa and Iza both find themselves to be opposing the government of Lasso, but there isn't a direct kind of a direct relationship between the two. But nevertheless, the media is actually trying to portray this whole uprising as basically being an attempt to throw the country into chaos. That's led by a few crazed indigenous leaders, and it's all being financed and organized from Brussels by Korea, and curiously enough, for some reason, by narco trafficking. So this is the level of insanity which exists in the mindset of the Ecuadorian media. If you thought that the one in the United States was crazy, the
Herrera, right? They're going back to that. Oh my Lord!
I know, right?
It's who believes this shit?
Well, you would definitely be surprised.
Wow.
That there's a whole section of the Ecuadorian society which has grown to be so hostile to Rafael Correa, but also to the indigenous leaders that it's not that they believe that Leonidas Ida and Correa narco traffickers or terrorists. It's that what they see in the news kind of reinforces their hatred and their disposition against their prejudices precisely, Fiorella, their prejudices against Correa and what he actually achieved during the decade when he was the president, or the prejudices that they have against the indigenous leaders and their own history of overthrowing neoliberal governments.
Yeah. Do you think that the Carrera party, though, still, like, some of his followers or his movement still has a lot of roots within Ecuador? And if that's the case, who can come up next and take the reins and take them away from this dictatorship of freaking American puppets like Lasso?
That's a great question, Pastor. Well, the Citizens Revolution Movement, which is now an official, an established political party in Ecuador, is the largest political organization.
What's it called?
The Citizens Revolution Movement.
Got it.
Citizens Revolution. Movimiento de la Revolución Ciudadana in Spanish. So it is the largest political force in the National Assembly. It received, Andrés Arauz, the chosen candidate in the last elections, received 47.5% of the vote. So it's a party that has at least 200,000 members, but even more importantly than that, it is a party that carries the legacy of Rafael Correa. The 10 years of his government, when poverty levels, inequality levels reduced substantially, when new massive projects were implemented in the country, renewable energy projects, road projects, when the oil industry was finally the resources and the dividends, the royalties from the oil industry were finally put to use in financing healthcare, schools, social programs. And this is not something that could be easily erased, even with the kind of media hegemony that exists in Ecuador and controlled by the right wing. Now, and I would say that even though the current protests are mostly organized and led by CONAIE, people like Leonidas Ida and sort of other organizations, the hegemony of the left in Ecuador still remains with Rafael Correa and with his movement, simply based on this long experience of say governing for the many and not for the few. With regards to your question, who might take the reins? It's a good question because there are certainly several candidates to take this position. I don't believe this would be Andrés Arauz, because he has mostly withdrawn from the Ecuadorian politics. He now focuses more on researching the international finance and also aiding different organizations around the world with the alternative visions for monetary policy. So he's a brilliant guy, economist, but not quite the presidential material that is needed right now. There is, of course, there are actually several, very promising female leaders of the citizens' revolution that I believe could take the reins. The current president of the citizens of the party, Marcela, sorry, I need to make sure I don't pronounce her surname, but okay. Marcela Aguinhaga. Marcela Aguinhaga has been considered to be one of the definitely someone who who could be on a ticket in the next presidential election. We also have Paula Pabon, who is she's the current prefect or governor of the Pichincha province, which is where Quito, the country's capital, is located. We also have another good comrade in Guayaquil, who's a member of the National Assembly.
Yeah. So you're saying that there's enough, the party controls most of the parliament there anyways. It's the largest party with one of some of the biggest representatives and whatnot. They have a lot of people coming up. I'm trying to figure out the disconnect and how, they went from Carrera to Moreno to Lasso, had that kind of like this bulk area. I mean, we understood, we watched this very closely because Julian Assange obviously was in the Ecuadorian embassy.
Right.
And then he was pretty much sold out. And Moreno, who kind of, I believe he lobbied himself and kind of campaigned as a progressive. Yeah. But as soon as he got in, he flipped the switch. How did Lasso follow this clown? And how come this People's Party didn't fucking take back control? And when are they taking back control?
Well, Pastor, we have to keep in mind that the entire citizens' revolution movement suffered enormous repression of its own during the years of the Moreno government, because they basically what Moreno's betrayal of the party and of Correa was, I think it's probably one of the most devastating, developments for the left in Ecuador, even Latin America that I've seen, because effectively what happened was that Rafael Correa was supposed to go into exile in Brussels, because Lenin Moreno basically initiated this witch hunt against him, against Vice President Jorge Glass, and against the whole sort of sway of other leaders, key leaders of the party. The party itself was basically taken over by him and just turned into his own private electoral machine. As we said, following the 2019 uprising as well, the Moreno governments, even stepped up its repression and forced other leaders of the revolution to go into exile, mostly to Mexico, actually. So we had people like Ricardo Patiño, the former foreign minister, Guillem Long, another former foreign minister, Gabriel Negro, the former president of the National Assembly, a whole sort of sway of leadership. People who really built the party from the start were forced out of the country. In fact, I think it was actually for a long time we didn't even know if anybody from Korea's party or sort of from this sort of circle of the leadership of the citizens' revolution would even be allowed to participate in the 2021 election. It was actually, I think it was actually a miracle that in the end, Moreno was forced to admit a candidate like Andres Arauz on the ballot. So it has been an extremely difficult time for them to try to rebuild the party, rebuild the movement. Which is what they've been basically trying to do for the last year or so.
Thank you, Dennis.
With the
sorry, Dennis. I just wanted to kind of ask you in terms of what's happening now and how this movement is happening, and there's the strike. How does that play into the context of what we're seeing in Latin America in general, where we're seeing this pink tide mixed in with the red tide obviously happening? We just saw this, of course, with Colombia, a very, very big win by Gustavo Petro. Could Ecuador be next in terms of turning the tide from the right wing into a more leftist or left of center type of coalition?
Well, I believe that this all depends on how really how these protests play out in the end, because I envisage there being three possible scenarios. Scenario number one is that we'll basically go through the same thing we went through in October of 2019. So the indigenous leaders and CONAIE will sit down with Lasso, and Lasso will try to fulfill the majority of their demands, especially particularly with regards to things like fuel subsidies, but basically try to calm the situation down. I say based on the previous, based on what happened in 2019, let's say based on the previous relationship between CONAIE and Pachakutik and Lasso government, I believe that will actually be the most likely scenario. Scenario number two is that Lasso and indigenous leaders fail in their dialogue, and the protests continue on. And in this kind of scenario, I believe we're actually going to see the military take a greater and greater political role in the government, although it already is. It already is kind of, and we are seeing that the military has even started to take over some of the key public administration buildings and services around the country. In Quito, the National Assembly has now also been, I would say, reinforced with the military. The cultural house of Quito, which is considered to be one of the sort of the key key public spaces that has been occupied and now serves as barracks for the military. So we're witnessing a greater militarization of the country. And in the case of a failure of any kind of a dialogue between Lasso and the indigenous leaders, we will see. Well, I believe we're going to see the military basically stepping in and effectively taking over the administration. Lasso would still be the president, of course, but it will be the military in charge. And the third option that I consider to be is that the protests, with this repression still escalating. If Lasso and the military don't find a peaceful solution to this, I believe we're going to see the repeat of what happened in 2003, which was when the then president Lucio Gutierrez was forced to flee Ecuador on a helicopter via Galapagos Islands, and the new government and his vice president was basically put in charge and calming the situation down and calling for new elections, and which was then followed, of course, by the victory of Rafael Correa, and so the beginning of the citizen revolution. Whether this scenario plays out really depends on would really depend on one, the unity and any kind of a cooperation which the Correa's camp and the camp of Leonidas Issa can come to. And secondly, it would depend on the resolve of the Ecuadorian police and the military, whether or not they would think that mass repression would be the price paying for keeping Lasso in the presidential chair.
Yeah. Pam, do you want to play some of these videos, or do you want to just?
Yeah. No, let's play some of the videos. I think that we had some of the videos just showing people what's happening. As if we can, go to the first video.
There were some amazing videos that we saw out here too as well.
Yeah.
One of the videos that I love, I'm sure we'll get to. I hope you'll put it in there with the military kind of backing down. Fam, that was amazing. That was just like, wow. In a lot of these situations, I think we've seen before, sometimes the military splits with the police force. Guys, you're pulling one up?
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that? Do you think the military are going to be standing more with the people? In fact, let's just roll some of these here.
You can play the videos while we talk. We can
let's
do that. Yeah. Say this is is one of the videos.
Yeah, this was in Quito, I believe. This is people arriving to Quito from Cotopaxi, which is one of the provinces to the south of Quito, and mostly indigenous province. I think we have to remember that in Ecuador, there is also there are different kind of different sort of indigenous nations. So you have the indigenous nations of the Sierra, or that is the mountains region, which is like Pichinche, Cotopaxi, Chimborazo, and then we have the indigenous nations of the Amazonia region. So the groups we're seeing here are the groups arriving from the nations of the
Sierra.
of La Sierra.
Yeah.
Yes.
You can key up the next one.
Yeah.
That's a lot of people there.
That's a lot of people.
Yeah.
That's a lot of people right there. I mean, holy shit.
Yeah, we never have anything like that in the States, remotely close. I think this is your video, the video that you posted. That's
from friend Orlando Perez, who's an Ecuadorian journalist based in Ecuador, and he works with Tosur. So this was in, sorry, it says person in Quito, but I actually made a mistake. I corrected it afterwards. They said this is actually Guayaquil, which I think is more significant. So the one you're showing there, yes, this was in Guayaquil. I think yesterday in the morning.
Yeah.
The next one I think is a medic, right? This is a medic saying that don't worry, we got your back, or what is this one?
No, this is the one in Guayaquil. The medic one is next. This is
here.
No, the one. Oh, that one. Yeah,
yes,
but where's the one that he just had on? Where's the other one that he just had on? The first one he didn't play yet. The one that was the one that was Dennis's video. Oh, okay. This is the medic, a medic that was saying that the street medic that was saying that they were protecting the people over there. So yeah. If you want to go back and play the other one from Guayaquil that he was explaining, what exactly was? Oh, I don't know what this one is. This is just another video of.
That's
Quito.
only half a screen of the other video. We've seen the sky on that one. This one right here. Play this one.
No, this is this. He already played this one. I'm so confused. Okay.
Yeah, play.
No, this is a Maduro video. Or maybe my thing is probably just behind. That's probably what's happening. Yeah.
Yeah, if you're watching the video, yeah, it's just fine.
This one I don't think we've seen. Right here. If you just want to play.
First, with regards to your question as to whether the police or the military would, if there would be any kind of break within the ranks, I would say that I remember during the 2019 protests, I remember there were actually some of the clashes between the police and the military in Guayaquil. I remember it very distinctly. And I believe it was actually the military which were actually more far more reluctant to engage in repression than the police was.
Got it. It always seems that way in a lot of these countries too, as well.
Yeah.
I think it would be the same thing in the United States, that you're going to see a lot more from the military than you will see any love from the police department. The police department seems like they're always going to serve the powerful and the interest, and more the financial ties there and stuff. So
I think that's often the key in revolutions, because if you remember what happened in Bolivia, it's the military that turned on the people, and so the military can be extremely important in terms of protecting. Yeah.
I think in case of Bolivia, I think the army and the military were actually the last to turn on Evo Morales. And it was mostly like the higher ranks of the military, because there was also, from what I understood, that although this was never actually published or wrote about very well, but there was certainly a sway of military leaders who did not agree with the coup, but basically had to kind of follow on with the orders of the generals. unfortunately, in Bolivia, there wasn't a Hugo Chavez who could have rallied, the lower-ranking officers against the coup, and brought Evo back to power.
Yeah. So just, I guess, to get you out of here, and we'll finish it up. Where do you see this? How do you see this finishing? Like, how do you see this finishing up? Do you see this? It seems like the violence is continuing, that they're getting more violent against these protesters, and that protesters are getting more, they're fighting back. It doesn't seem to me like they're going to stop anytime soon. So how do you see this conflict ending, or do you not see it? I think.
Well, I think going back to these, the three scenarios that I mentioned just before, how these things could play out. I believe the ball is now very much in the court of Leonidas Issa. Leonidas is, and I believe that his character and his political trajectory, I think, would say a lot about how this could play out. Because Issa has been considered for a very long time as being a very left-wing leader within the indigenous movement as compared to others. He is, I would say, he is probably a person who is the closest to being the Ecuador's version of Evo Morales, although he's not. When I say the closest, I say he's still got quite a long way to go, because one thing that Morales had, Morales actually built a mass party within Bolivia, and this is something that's Issa and I say the Pachakutik party and a lot of the indigenous movement actually failed to do. They failed to come to an agreement with Rafael Correa, and they failed to construct kind of a unified political force which would have combined the workers and the masses within the urban within the urban centers, along with the progressive middle class, which is basically Correa's party, and of course the indigenous movements of the rural areas of the La Sierra and of the Amazonia. I believe that Leonidas Issa has learned his lesson from or at least I hope he learned his lesson of the October 2019 uprisings as to never to trust neoliberal regimes or neoliberal governments, and that he would find a way to come to an agreement with Rafael Correa and with the Citizens' Revolution to say simultaneously carry out a democratic transition within Ecuador. As a phrase which United States love to use when it comes to when it comes to countries like Venezuela, Cuba, and Nicaragua, which usually means a foreign-led intervention and overthrowing elected government. What I mean in this case is effectively joining forces in the parliament. Since they together, these forces together, and with some of the other parties which are hostile to Lasso, they together hold almost 2/3 of the assembly. So based on Lasso's actions, based on the repression of the protests or the assassinations, breaking promises, breaking the constitution as well, because the Ecuadorian constitution clearly states that there are sections of the Ecuadorian state that cannot be privatized. Healthcare sectors, education sectors.
Based upon all that, what's going to happen then?
What I hope for to happen, and what actually may also hope for to happen, is that Lasso is removed from power through a parliamentary vote. It exists. Certain law exists within the Ecuadorian constitution that allows for that a president can be removed by a national assembly if he broken. I believe the exact wording is he has consistently gone against the national interests of the country.
So they can remove him. They can pretty much impeach him. Is what they're going to
Impeachment is
Isn't a good word. All right. Well,
yeah.
we could just have to pay close attention to this.
Which basically be
going on, pretty much.
Which would then put his vice president in charge, and I think his role or his main function would be to call for new elections.
Yeah, snap elections. I mean, that's the main thing we have to. That's the only way that we're gonna have a lot of change in the power right there to get back to the old Carrera way, is if we have snap elections, and if Ecuador has snap elections, and then they can usher in a new leader, one that the Ecuadorian people like and want. Fam?
Yeah. Well, that's it. Thank you so much, Dennis, for coming on. And
Thank you so much, guys.
Dennis, tell everybody where they can find you.
Sure thing. Well, they can find me on Twitter at Dennis Rogatyuk. You can also find me at El Ciudadano, writing in Spanish. And in English, well, there's a kind of a whole bunch of publications that I have worked with before, such as Sputnik, the Gray Zone, Tell Us Our English, Jacobin Mag, and a whole bunch of others. And now on CONVO Couch.
Hey!
Yes.
We love you, Dennis. Thank you for joining on in.
Right. You guys. Thank you so much for this. Great talking to you.
We'll see you later. Talk to you later. Bye.
D-Rock, fam.
Okay, so I think we got to finish up like a couple things, right? I had like a tweet or something.
Yeah. We have a couple things in there really quick. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Fam, if you want to put it up. Osland. Number 33.
If you want to put it up.
33 Oz. Yeah.
Osland.
So you talk about journalists being targeted over there.
Yeah, so this is just part of the whole violence thing that we were all just talking about, that journalists are being targeted, that they're being, also shot at by rubber bullets. I mean, this happened too in the United States not that long ago, if we recall, with the George Floyd protests. So that was definitely a thing. Next one, you can go ahead and do the next one. I think I was talking about something. Lasso is a was a US-backed candidate. He also attended recently the Biden Democracy Summit, and he had a close relationship with Anthony Blinken. He is definitely their guy. He's definitely not somebody that the people of Ecuador really like. And in fact, a lot of people claim that there was fraud in that election. That there was a third candidate who was this kind of woke, a real like woke progressive that came in, and he like stole votes. I think Dennis mentioned him earlier, from the other candidate, Arauz. And so that's kind of why he lost. So just a reminder of who this guy is. And you guys can see in the next slide, there was an article written when he won, or when he was selected. And this person wrote about how Lasso prevailed, the disaster for the people, and how, if you can put that up, and how basically he was just a US backed candidate, and that he was just going to really work for the establishment. He wasn't going to do anything for the people of Ecuador. And so that's pretty much what happened. A lot of people were upset when he got the nomination because of those reasons. So, and then I think there might be one more slide, but I think that's it after that.
That was it.
Okay. So yeah, guys, that's just a snippet of the next slide, whatever the next slide is. I think we're done with that section.
That's
and I think this is important because Latin America there is this tide happening, right? There is this change happening, as Pasta said earlier, and it's important that we know what's happening and how to really see how these things come about. And the things that these people have to deal with, they're dealing with governments that are shooting people, killing people, and that sort of thing. So again, going back to the Colombia thing, to say that there's this wokeism, no, people are literally dealing with like life and death situations in a lot of these countries. And a lot of it is, of course, pushed by the United States backing these candidates, like they backed Duque, like they backed Lasso. And who has to clean up the mess? The people of these countries have to come and clean up the mess. And they have to, some of the people have to like negotiate who they're going to get. Like Dennis just talked about 3 things that could happen. This is how it could happen. They've negotiated with the liberals before. And then, this is that sort of thing. They have to kind of figure things out after our government goes in there and makes a mess. So when you talk about Latin America, when we talk about left, right, center, left, and all that, and incrementalism, essentially, it's completely different than when we talk about it in the United States.
At the end of this month is, I think, the 13 or 14 year anniversary of the coup in Honduras and what they could do. You know what I'm saying? Manuel Zelaya joined ALBA, and then less than a week later, he was ushered out of there. I mean, they have the force, the military might. We went there. We were able to ask Mel those questions, like, what's going to change them for doing this? And he says, I just, he gave us the kind of political answer and whatnot. He's, I invite you to trust me on this one of sorts. They understand what they can do and what they can't do and how they can't overreach too far. We understand that Petro might not be the radical left that you guys really, 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 really wanted. You know what I'm saying? But, we've talked to Terry Mattson about this. This is the candidate they needed right now. This is the stepping stone. First things first, let's get rid of this narco-controlled government over here. Let's get a peace agreement in Colombia, which has been fighting for so long. You get the FARC, who's pretty much retreated back into the Amazon and the forest, wherever they can go hide out because things are so split. Militias popping up left and right. Paramilitary groups killing people. This was the first step. This is what the people wanted. It isn't a woke ideology that moved them to move for Petro. It was like, we got to get the boot off our neck first, and then we can work on other things. And that's just the way it is, especially when you have military bases from the empire of the United States in your country with troops right there that will remove your ass in a heartbeat. So, and I get it. There's been a lot of chastising from Petro when it came to Maduro, but he has even said that he's going to open up international trade with Venezuela. They're going to try to be more of an ally, that they are neighboring states, and figure out what to do and stuff. The other guy who was running was not a leftist populist candidate. He was almost endorsed immediately by the right wing over there. And like Fama said, he's ushered in his like of Hitler and other situations. So to get perspective, you got to go there. When you go there, you get a lot of different perspective and you honestly see what's going on. Honduras and Colombia had a lot of the same things that, aligned with, in which they have to watch and tiptoe around the empire so they don't get removed right away. As opposed to Nicaragua, when Ortega can go Yankee, go home, because he doesn't have troops in his freaking country that can overturn him in a heartbeat like the other countries are, and the situation they're in, fam. Shall I read the 2 super rays real quick and then we'll move on to the last section?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Chris Leon, again, thank you so much for the super ray contribution. Sorry, guys, I don't mean to start drama with you and other podcasters, but Hinkle has been showing his true colors lately. He's been on an anti-trade tirade lately and associating with toxic characters lately. Used to follow him, but not anymore. As far as your guys' work in the Global South, really love it. I wish you lots of good things on your new journey. Fiorella RT is lucky to have you. Yes, they are. And we all wish her the love and the luck in moving forward there as well. And it's great that we get to still do this too as well. As far as starting drama, don't worry. It's not drama. I spoke to Jackson the other day. I'll speak to him again. His opinions are his opinions. We can disagree with them. It's just that, not for nothing. We went down there. We understand what's going on. We've been going to the Global South now for the last 6 months. We've hit up 5 countries in the last 6 months. So we understand what's going on. We're able to talk to people and whatnot. So I would just hope that in the future that we get more opportunities to go on more shows and talk about these things, because, you get a whole different perspective when you go down there. Right, fam? I mean, when you get
Yeah. Pasta's very, 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 this is why he's the nice one. If you're going to have people on to talk about a country, have people on to know what they're talking about that have been in the region. It's that simple. Just do it. I mean, it's not that hard. There's a lot of people that have been to Colombia that can talk about Colombia in so many ways, that have been to the Global South. And that's that. I mean, we can say that. Like, we don't have to, walk around eggshells. We can say that there are better ways to do things. And that's that. And you know, and it really it's been longer than 6 months because I went to Peru as well, and I covered those elections. I'm from you know, a country that is still living the ridiculous results of U.S. Imperialism, coups, the brainwashing of people to love capitalism in terms of U.S. imperialism, in terms of the American dream. In fact, Moscow itself is very there's a lot of love for the United States because of Hollywood, because of the propaganda, because of all the things that they make it they make it out to be. And so there's a different perspective that needs to be out there, except, you know, not just like the white boy centric perspective that is very it's pervasive all over YouTube. And some people need to be more aware of that there are other voices, and it's not identity politics to point that out. It's literally my experience is completely different than somebody else's experience as the other person's experience. And so maybe perhaps some of our experiences should be put out there and should be told. I mean, seriously, more often than they are. And you know, that's just my stance on it, and I will stand on that.
You know, when we get to go down there and cover elections, yes, elections is a big part of what we do, but it's only a small amount of time to what we actually, the information that we take in, you know, because you have the day of the election, you have a little bit beforehand where you talk about the elections itself. The majority of the time is speaking with activists, groups, people, citizens, understanding what they're going through and where their mind and their perspective is from. And you get a really, I mean, it's in your face when you get that stuff, and to get to go out there and talk. And like I've said before, you know, this is something like Petro is the president they want and they need right now when it comes to the peace agreements, the peace accords. And that's the whole thing. You have NATO in this country to deal with the entities you have to deal with to get things done in these countries. You have to deal with people and groups you don't want to necessarily deal with. But those are the ones that are in control and entrenched there. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, it's hard to get away from that, dealing with USAID there and whatnot. I mean, the groups that actually got the credentials and stuff, we know who they were. They had ties to the OAS, they had ties to the EU. They're entrenched.
National Endowment for Democracy.
Yeah, I mean, they're entrenched in the country. So there's going to be some dealing and talking with these people. If Nicaragua just threw the OAS out, but up until they just throwing them out, they had to deal with them. They had to have meetings when they had to talk and stuff. That doesn't mean they're bought off by them. That's ludicrous. Chris Leon, last comment, last Super Ray right here says, "And Pasta, I really love the morning show. I told you, fam. Listen to it every day. You guys are hilarious, informative, and really love you guys. Sabby, RBN, Shanda, and Oz, I love and support all you guys. I will be on Sabby's show tomorrow talking about the elections, 5 p.m. Eastern time, 8 p.m. Eastern time, 5 Pacific, to talk about Colombian elections tomorrow. RBN, I look forward to having more conversations with these people. I really do. Shanda and Oz, those are our fans. I love you and support you guys all. Hey, Pasta, you should reach out to Robert from Blazing Press and have him on AM Wake Up. I think Steve would enjoy discussing getting off the grid with him. Steve loves it when people talk about parallel societies. He just jumps in it. Parallel societies. Dr. Ely said it today, and he's parallel society. You know,
I told Steve we need to take him to Bilwi. We need to take him to the autonomous zone of Nicaragua where they have a parallel society, and then he can try to call Ortega some sort of tyrant. Steve,
you know what he says?
You'll see.
Can you buy guns there? No, then I ain't going. Steve, for you. Let's get on to this last subject.
What if you don't need guns? If like, what if you just don't need them at that point? I mean, I'm pretty sure you can get them if you really want them.
We'll get them a big.
But okay.
A big.
I'll give you a bazooka, Steve.
We'll get you something. Colonel Douglas McGregor.
So last section. Yes.
He says McGregor. The war is over and Russia has won. If you don't know who Colonel Douglas McGregor is, at the very end of his term, Donald Trump hired him to try to get the troops out of Afghanistan. Yeah. He's traditionally, been with a lot of conservatives or worked under conservative administrations. He's worked under Democratic administrations as well, too. He's just got a great insight. Here he is on FAM's favorite podcaster, favorite judge, Napolitano, talking about what essentially is going on and how Russia has won the war. We got 3 clips from the interview. Guys, if you don't get to, if you haven't seen this whole interview, go watch the whole interview. It's great. It's only about 20 minutes. We got about 9 minutes of it clipped up here. Let's start with the first part of him explaining, kind of like what Scott Ritter did, of how Russia has won this war.
Sources of how the conflict is going in Ukraine and how and when it is likely to end up?
Well, the first question is an easy one to answer. Ukraine has lost this war. I would argue it lost it some time ago. It's now becoming so apparent that even the most ardent supporter of Ukraine's war on Russia in London, Berlin, Paris, or the United States, and Washington can't really stand up and say anything else. I suppose some will, but the truth is the war is over. The Ukrainians are losing on a daily basis somewhere between 500 and 1,000 dead and wounded. Their army is effectively annihilated. They're throwing reservists, the equivalent of what we would call National Guardsmen, into the buzzsaw. And the Russians are very calmly, methodically annihilating whatever shows up. The Russians have already begun consolidating their control over 25, 30% of Ukraine, where the Ukrainian forces were previously paused to attack Russia. They now control a territory that is responsible for roughly 80% of Ukraine's gross national product. So I expect that the Russians will hold on to this and incorporate it into Russia. It will be annexed. It was historically Russian. It is again. Now, as far as how will this end? Well, we have a lot of people that seem to be determined that it will not end. And that is extremely dangerous because the longer this lasts, the greater the potential for this regional conflict to widen and engulf more countries and ultimately to drag us in, which some people think is the real goal, incomprehensible as that may seem.
Okay, fam. He just said that Russia has captured about 80% of the GDP that Ukraine historically relied on. And he's talking about a lot of wheat, the breadbasket of the world, right? Where Russia's is now expanded a lot of that territory through the Donbass regions and their independence now in those two states. What does that mean for the future of Ukraine? I mean, if they got 80% of their GDP, you know, all their wheat, everything they relied upon, what does that mean for the future of Ukraine? I mean, does that mean that Ukraine can even exist? You know, and the second part is, I don't think it's barbaric that Putin did what he did, because the constant pushback by the Zelensky government and the Ukrainian government that is completely funded and propped up by the United States and the West continue to do what they're doing. You know what I'm saying? And now they're shelling people in the Donetsk, again, innocent civilians. So what does it mean that they got 80% of the resources? What does that mean for the future of the Ukraine? And is it merited by Vladimir Putin and the Russian Federation?
Well, fam, all I know is that the Russian spokesperson has said they're never going to trust the West again. So there's a reason why they're doing this. They're not going to go back to their old terms where it was like, oh, we're just gonna, you know, have you sign this contract or say that you're not going to go further east. They're not going to do that because they don't. That it's been broken, right? Trust has been broken. So once trust is broken, now you have to go another route. And so what they're trying to do is they're going to try to have enough control to have Ukraine be a more dependent on Russia, so they don't go running into NATO. Or perhaps there's going to have to be some sort of splitting of the entire country, because that's what essentially what's happening. People in the Donbass and the Donetsk are splitting off, and they want to be a part of Russia. Same thing that happened with Crimea. And so what we're seeing is Ukraine has been ravaged and devastated by this conflict. And the United States and NATO and Europe, they don't care because they're just weaponizing Ukraine. And so Ukraine, they try to say Ukraine is this sovereign country. It's not. Ukraine stopped being a sovereign country a long time ago, the moment the United States interfered and pretty much began controlling all of their politics, while, of course, these paramilitary band-right fascists began controlling the military. And so I don't think Ukraine is going to be in a position to be a sovereign nation for a long time. And I don't think it's ever going to be what it was before.
Yeah, either do I. And I do think it's merited. You know what I'm saying? I'm so sorry. I hate to say something like that because at the end of the day, it's Ukrainians who are suffering. It was Ukrainians
Right.
who were used. Like, I talk about the way the United States treated Ukraine like a toilet bowl, doing whatever they had to do their business and not caring about the people. And at the end of the day, the people, innocent people are the ones who are going to suffer. But I don't believe that they could have a promising future moving forward with where they were starting from 2014 with these Banderite fascists kind of all implemented throughout their whole government, within their police forces, within the military, within their street politics. So, I mean, really, to tell you the truth, moving forward, I think that this is only a move that could be made, and should be made. And it's also once again, Putin making these moves, the Russian Federation, it should be expected. The next clip, fam, talks about the finances and the finances from the United States, how we're suffering, how the fact that they're just writing blank checks left and right to give the Ukrainian government, in which we are paying for. We have 750,000 homeless people, and that's the ones they counted, fam, out here. And yet we're giving billions and billions of dollars to Ukraine like it's nothing. We're funding their government. It's disgusting, and I can't believe the people in the United States have not called bullshit. And when I say bullshit, I mean like protests following Nancy Pelosi, Mitch McConnell, Chuck Schumer, all the leaders within our government that are propping this up. And we have another one that will prop it up too as well. We'll play that. Oz just loves the Attorney General. Go ahead, but let's play. This is the finances coming out of Colonel McGregor. McGregor.
Is the United States still sending cash and military equipment, or have the $56 billion that the Congress authorized, plus some of the president's discretionary funds, as recently as another billion? I don't know where he got it, but this is the type of discretion we give to the president of the United States. Has that all been spent? Has it all been delivered?
Well, not all of it is being spent. Not all of it has yet been delivered, but most of it is effectively gone. And the thing that most Americans don't understand is that we are actually paying double or close to double what we normally pay for equipment. Because remember, what happens is that we ship equipment and support and supplies to Ukraine, as well as cash, because we are effectively funding the Ukrainian government. If we stopped funding the Ukrainian government, everything would collapse. I'm sure Mr. Zelensky would climb into an airplane and fly to Miami, where he owns a mansion, and essentially try to duck any responsibility for what's going on. But we continue to send hundreds of millions of dollars in hard cash over there that pays everyone. But the key thing is that the military equipment we send ends up costing us twice what it normally would.
And why is that?
Well, it's, first of all, we can't replace it right away. That's part of the problem. We have to replace it. In order to replace it, we have to pay more for what we're giving away. So we end up sending enormous quantities of money in a direct transfer right to the Department of Defense. If you simply view this as part of the American defense budget, well, now you're approaching $1 trillion in ways that we never have before. We're spending so recklessly at this point. It's hard to know exactly how much we are investing, not just in the Department of Defense, but of course in our intelligence agencies.
All right. So if we give them a tank, I'm just going to throw out a round number. We give them a tank worth $1 million. It's going to cost us $1,250,000 to replace it. Is that the essence?
At least.
Okay.
Financially reckless this is. We give them tons of money, and it's that old saying, the military industrial complex doesn't care who wins the war, it doesn't care who loses the war. All they care, fam, is if they have the war, and so they can have this reckless spending and just draining the American economy and putting it into the hands of defense contractors.
Exactly, fam. Exactly.
The last clip is a little bit of an extensive one, but it also talks about the interactions of like how our government works. Colonel McGregor's in a good position where he can say, well, this is who advises the president. This is how the president picks who he wants to listen to. So this is my favorite clip of the whole thing, fam. I'm very curious to hear your thoughts on what McGregor says about how the interactions work, the inner apparatus of sorts, how that works.
Have any of the people around the president, as far as you know, military, diplomatic, or intelligence come to the same conclusions that you just articulated?
Well, if there are, they're in deep hide. Let's face it. You've got to keep in mind something, and this is what Americans don't understand. People say, well, how could we have reached these conclusions and done such a stupid thing, say in the wake of 9/11 or any number of different instances in Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria, now with Ukraine? The point is there are always people in the intelligence system who provide sound analysis. It's just that their analysis is not wanted. So you have political leaders who essentially pick and choose from the intelligence estimates. The same thing is true on the military side with generals. There's an old expression. Presidents ultimately get the generals they want. Now that can be positive. Look what Lincoln went through until he finally had U.S. Grant. That's a good example. FDR was a little more fortunate early on with Marshall, but it was still a very tough fight for Marshall to build an army because FDR wanted to fight the whole war with the Air Force and the Navy. These things happen over time, and JFK ultimately got the generals he wanted, and they were the generals that led us into Vietnam. Everyone does this, and people forget that general officers don't emerge suddenly or surprisingly. No, he agrees with us.
But there must be military intelligence and CIA that have come to the same conclusion you have. Not that Ukraine is losing, but that Ukraine has lost.
Oh yeah, I'm sure they
have. Russia controls enough property, so it's 80% of the gross national product, which includes the ability to derive taxes for the government to stay alive.
Right.
Is somebody telling that to Joe Biden, and is he rejecting it? Or maybe you don't know this because you're obviously not in the administration. Is that advice not even making its way into the Oval Office?
I suspect that our friend President Biden is sort of a mushroom. They keep him in a dark place and feed him crap. I think Susan Rice, Jake Sullivan, Blinken, oligarchs, frankly, rich, powerful figures that control the Democratic Party and let's face it, large portions of the Republican Party who dominate Washington. They all have much more influence now than Americans realize. They're running the show. So I think they're not telling Joe Biden anything that they don't really want him to know. But more important, they're riding this train to oblivion, and they're not going to get off, and they're throwing more coal into the locomotive with each passing day. In other words, they're doubling down on failure in the belief that if they just hang on long enough, somehow or another, miraculously, they're going to win. And they're destroying NATO. They're tearing Europe apart. Europeans are finally beginning to wake up to the disaster. They've lost control of Eastern Europe. You have the Lithuanians who want to cut the Russians off from East Prussia, or this place called Kaliningrad. You have Russian retired officers now calling for Putin to commit nuclear weapons to the defense of Kaliningrad. At the same time, you have the Poles who continue to advocate for greater violence against Russia and greater support for the non-existent Ukrainian state, because let's face it, Ukraine is now a failed state. It's collapsed. People are being pushed at gunpoint into Russian fire. This whole thing is a disaster, but no one wants to admit failure because they know once they admit failure, they lose all credibility.
Yeah, and my favorite part of that was Biden is a mushroom.
He's a mushroom. He's a mushroom. You know
don't insult mushrooms like that. That's why.
That's an insult to mushrooms. Last week on our show with Julian Assange shit was going down. I believe it was on Friday. Our boy Gordon goes, to call this a kangaroo court is really an insult to kangaroos. Like in that.
You did say that, yes. It's
great. True. Yeah. But yeah, fam, that's what's going on. I mean, they're just showing the inner workings of whatnot. There's people in their ears, but you pick the generals you want to get you the results you want. You're going to have opinions across the board. And it's all these globalists who are pulling the strings, and they just find the people who tell them what they want. It's like corporate America. A lot of these owners hire managers or management that tells them what they want to hear or does the things they want to do. They don't tell them what's best for the country or what's best for the company. in this particular, situation. They tell them what's best for what objectives they want.
If they want to hear.
Yeah, exactly. So they get
And whatnot.
Yeah, and whatnot. In the Daily Mail, fam, you're going to see this right here. Attorney General Merrick Garland becomes the latest Biden official to visit Ukraine as he meets with the country's top prosecutor to discuss what Russian war crimes, fam. And I'm going to go to slide 27 really quickly. Oz, if you go to 27, it says right here, here's the bullet points, because we have a little video of this. This is great. The virtue signaling out of this, the whole charades to act like we're the ones who are standing on, on peace and whatnot, morals and whatnot. We're the ones. The Attorney General Merrick Garland made an unannounced visit to Ukraine. He sat down with the Ukrainian prosecutor to discuss prosecuting Russian war crimes. The United States is sending an unmistakable message. There is no place to hide, Garland said upon his arrival to Ukraine. The two met for about an hour on the Ukraine border with Poland. Biden has called Russian President Vladimir Putin a war criminal. So they sent Merrick Garland there, right, fam, to discuss with the head prosecutors, like they will be held accountable for their war crimes. All the blood, all the bullshit, everything we're funding, all the proxy war, the death and destruction that we are sending, we have the nerve, the balls, the gall to send Merrick Garland over there as the protector of truth and principle of law and order to make sure that these people are held accountable for their war crimes, fam. Any thoughts before we watch your boy Merrick Garland speak at a press conference in Ukraine?
This is hypocrisy and whatnot. Let's just go ahead and whatnot. I mean, watch it. Yeah.
All right, let's take a look. Just press play there. Yeah. There, you'll see it. So pretty much there they are in Ukraine on the border, meeting with the head prosecutor of Ukraine, and they're going to sit down together and they're going to figure out how they can hold these Russian criminals accountable, fam, for their crimes against humanity and stuff. The USA, the Captain Americas, the Golden Boys over there, right? The ones who do no wrong are going to be the ones to hold the evildoers accountable in Russia and Vladimir Putin.
And whatnot.
Here they are. All right. The charades.
Good afternoon to all of you. I'm here to express the unwavering support of the United States for the people of Ukraine in the midst of the unprovoked and unjust Russian invasion. I'm here to continue our discussions between myself and the Prosecutor General about the actions that the United States is taking to assist the Ukrainian authorities in holding accountable those responsible for the atrocities, for the war crimes that the entire world has seen. The United States is sending an unmistakable message. There is no place to hide. We and our partners will pursue every avenue available to make sure that those who are responsible for these atrocities are held accountable. Thank you all.
Accountability and justice. Відповідальність і правосуддя. Всі ми цього прагнемо. Дякуємо. We can go.
Attorney General, go.
Fam, your thought on this. The beautiful, this is slapstick comedy at best.
I mean, what can you expect? I mean, this is what they do. The hypocrisy is astounding coming from Merrick Garland. I mean, what else are you going to say? I mean, this is the theatrics, the hypocrisy, the just ridiculousness. Russia, Putin, boogeyman all over while they're not addressing any of their economic concerns at home. And they don't care because this is what they want. They like McGregor mentioned, it's like if they admit that the truth, essentially, then they're going to lose all credibility. So.
I love his plan when he says, keep doing the same thing that you're doing despite it wrong and hopes that it changes, that something miraculously comes about. Fam, we have one more super ray from AREM. It says, thank y'all so much. Thank you, AREM. Amazing.
Thank you, AREM.
Fam, let's wrap it up. We'll be back on Friday.
Yes, we'll be back on Friday. Maybe you'll see a little surprise from me tomorrow, Thursday. But yes, we'll be back on Friday, and much love to all of you. You guys are awesome. Thank you for putting up with pasta, and thank you for loving me. And
You see why I'm the nice one. See why I'm the nice one, and there. Ooh, that's gotta hurt. You know, I want to go back and press the soundboard. Fam, I just want to thank all our Patreons out there who've done so much. What up, DC, my Lib Soch brother? That's DC over there. What's up, dog? Lib Soch. That's what we are, fam. Anyways, we'd like to thank you all for joining on in today. Go over to our Rokfin, sign up if you haven't signed up. We just crossed the 31,000 mark. If you haven't signed up on YouTube, you can do the same too as well. We love you guys so much. We can't thank you enough for putting us in play, for putting us boots in the ground so we can bring you the real stories from countries like Colombia when we get out there. You guys make it possible. We have no sponsors over here, only powered by you. Special thank to all our Patreons too as well. You guys mean the world to us. And for Pasta Jardula.
From Fiorella.
Oh my God, fam. Oh my Lord. We're going to have to talk. Who's in charge of management over there at RT? Get them on the horn. I have something to say. And Oz with the overalls on the 1s and 2, fam.
CONVO out.
Yeah, CONVO, good night, fam. Get some.
Pravda.
Peace.